I stood by my wife through a major illness, then she cheated. When it came back, I sold the home and filed for divorce. But my last move left her speechless. I never thought my wife's phone, sitting innocently on our kitchen counter, held the key to the most brutal deception of my life. It was 2 a.m., and in that moment, my entire world, everything I believed about love, sacrifice, and survival, shattered into a million pieces. The only sound was the soft hum of the refrigerator, but in my head, a cacophony of fear and disbelief screamed. I'm Caleb, 36, a forensic financial analyst. My job is to expose liars, to pick apart their schemes piece by intricate piece, usually in federal court. But there I stood, staring at Olivia's phone, realizing the most skilled con artist I'd ever encountered had been sleeping next to me for years. She'd used cancer as her shield, my devotion as her cover, and she almost got away with it. Almost. This is what I did when I found out. 2 years prior, Olivia came home from a routine checkup. Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, stage 2B. Sophia, our daughter, had just turned 8. Liam, our son, was 11. Suddenly, we were at our dining table, talking chemotherapy and survival rates. Dr. Chen said it was aggressive but treatable. 6 months of treatment, maybe radiation, and we'd fight it together. I promised her that, with everything I had. I canceled work trips to Philadelphia and Atlanta, completely restructured my career around her treatment, and became fluent in medical terminology I never wanted to know. CHOP protocol. Rituximab infusions. Neutropenia. Peripheral neuropathy. I wasn't just a supportive husband, I was her caretaker, her advocate, the person holding everything together while she fought for her life. I made breakfast every morning, packed lunches for Sophia with little notes, drove Liam to soccer and piano, helped with homework. Then I spent my evenings at the hospital, watching Olivia sleep through the poison they were pumping into her body. I held her hair back when she was sick, rubbed her feet when the neuropathy made them burn, slept in hospital chairs more nights than I can count. Liam once asked if his mom was going to die, and I had no good answer. Sophia stopped sleeping through the night, and I'd find her at 3 a.m. in Olivia's closet, crying into her mother's sweater, as if it could protect her. I held our family together, because that's what you do when someone you love is fighting for their life. Olivia had always done charity work, but after her diagnosis, she became the face of the Hands Forward Foundation, a nonprofit helping families dealing with cancer. Her story resonated with people in ways that surprised everyone. She did interviews, spoke at fundraising events, shared her journey on social media with a raw honesty that inspired donors. The foundation's donations tripled during her treatment, and Olivia became a local celebrity in the cancer advocacy community. I was so proud, thinking she was turning something horrible into something meaningful. I had no idea she was using it as a stage, and I was just a prop in her performance. 6 months into treatment, Olivia went into remission. Dr. Chen called it excellent news, and we celebrated like we'd won the lottery. Her hair started growing back, her energy returned, and life slowly felt normal again. She went back to part-time work with the foundation, organizing events and managing donor relations. I kept my schedule flexible in case she needed me, and we fell into a routine that felt like healing. Dinner together every night, movie nights on weekends, monthly date nights at our favorite Italian spot. I genuinely believed we were rebuilding, that we'd survive the worst thing a marriage could endure and come out stronger. Then, one evening in late September, about 6 months into remission, I came home early from a meeting. Olivia's phone lay on the kitchen counter. She was upstairs in the shower, and the screen lit up with a message I couldn't ignore: "Can't wait to hold you again." Tonight felt too short. The sender was just listed as M. My stomach plummeted. I picked up her phone, my fingers flying to the passcode she'd used for years, the same one I'd used countless times when she was too sick to respond herself. Why would she hide anything from me? I was the devoted husband who'd proven I'd do anything for her. The text thread loaded. I started scrolling. 8 months of messages, right through the middle of her chemotherapy, through the weeks when I was sleeping in hospital chairs and missing work to be by her side. photos that made me sick to my stomach. Hotel receipts. Conversations about being careful, because he's always watching my schedule now. Then I found the message that truly destroyed everything. He thinks the cancer brought us closer. He has no idea who I really am. I stood in that kitchen, listening to the shower still running upstairs, and felt my entire world collapse. I'd given up career opportunities, spent thousands of hours caring for her, held her through the worst moments of her life. And she'd been lying the entire time. Not just lying, but planning, calculating, using my devotion as a cover while she built a life with someone else. The shower turned off. I had maybe 3 minutes before she came downstairs. I did what I do best. I started gathering evidence. I spent the next week living a double life. The irony wasn't lost on me. I created a folder on my laptop labeled Henderson Case, after a real client, and inside, I built a timeline that would make any prosecutor proud. Screenshots, metadata, location data, everything documented and backed up. I worked late every night after Olivia went to bed. When she asked what I was working on, I'd tell her it was a complicated fraud case. She'd bring me coffee, playing the supportive wife while I documented her betrayal. It took me about 20 minutes to identify him. Marcus Hall, 41, management consultant at a firm downtown, married with 2 kids, living 15 minutes from our house. Cross-referencing his phone number with LinkedIn and property records gave me everything I needed. I stared at his professional headshot for a long time, trying to understand what she saw in him, then reminded myself I wasn't the problem here and went back to building my case. The affair had started during her treatment, which meant the timeline overlapped with some of the worst moments of our lives. I found messages from specific dates I remembered clearly. One was from a night when I'd called her frantically because she'd missed a blood test, terrified something had happened. She texted back saying she'd lost track of time at a support group meeting. Her message to Marcus that same day said, "Spa day was perfect." I needed that so badly. Another was from a weekend when she'd told me she needed to attend a foundation planning retreat in the mountains for donor strategy meetings. I'd stayed home with the kids, got Liam to his soccer tournament, helped Sophia with a school project about ocean ecosystems. Olivia's messages to Marcus from that weekend included photos from a bed and breakfast, wine glasses, sunset views, and the words, "Best 48 hours and forever." Every lie had been carefully constructed because she knew exactly what I wanted to hear, and exactly how devoted I'd be to supporting her recovery. But then I found something that changed everything from betrayal to something much worse. Olivia had set up a second email account, something I only discovered because she'd used a password incorporating one of her chemotherapy drug names. This account was registered under her maiden name and connected to financial transactions I didn't recognize. Consulting fees, invoice payments, transfers that made no sense until I started pulling the threads. There was a company called LM Wellness Consulting LLC, registered 6 months earlier, with Olivia as the managing member. The business address was a UPS store mailbox. The bank account had deposits matching payments marked as consulting services in the Hands Forward Foundation's financial records. Small amounts at first, $500 here, $750 there. Numbers that wouldn't trigger immediate red flags in a non-profit budget. But then the amounts grew, $1,500, $3,000, and then one payment that made my blood run cold, $47,000, marked as a strategic planning consultation fee. I cross-referenced the dates with the Foundation's donor records. That $47,000 had come from a private grant specifically designated for patient assistance programs. Money supposed to help families pay for treatment and medication, the kind of expenses that bankrupt people when cancer hits. Olivia had created a fake consulting company, approved the invoices herself as the Foundation's patient advocacy director, and funneled the money into her own account. This wasn't just an affair anymore. This was embezzlement, fraud, federal crime territory, the exact kind of thing I testified about in court when other people did it. The money had been spent on hotels, restaurants, an $8,200 jewelry purchase, and transfers to Marcus's personal account marked as loan repayment, even though I could find no record of any legitimate loan. She built an entire financial infrastructure to support her affair and exit strategy, using money meant for cancer patients. I sat in my home office at 3 a.m., looking at spreadsheets and bank transfers, realizing my wife wasn't just a cheater, but a criminal who'd weaponized a cancer charity to steal from the very people she claimed to be helping. I downloaded everything, backed it up in 3 separate locations, including secure cloud storage, and started planning my next move. This required precision, strategy, and perfect timing. I called my mom, Brenda, the next morning and asked if she could take the kids for the weekend. I told her Olivia and I needed time to reconnect. She was thrilled, said it was exactly what we needed after everything. That Saturday, I did something I never thought I'd do. I followed my own wife. She told me she had a foundation board meeting about quarterly reviews and fundraising goals. I watched her leave in professional clothes, drive toward downtown, then turn into a boutique hotel I recognized from her messages. She was inside for 4 hours. I sat 3 blocks away, tracking her location through our family sharing app, the same app we'd set up during treatment so I could find her in emergencies. When she came home that evening, she looked refreshed and happy, kissed my cheek, and started describing the board meeting that never happened. She described conversations with people who weren't there, decisions never made, concerns about funding that didn't exist. She lied to my face with the same genuine expression she'd used when thanking me for staying with her through chemotherapy. I smiled and nodded, watching her construct an entire fictional narrative without hesitation. That night, I contacted Jacqueline Stone, a divorce attorney who'd worked on several of my cases, known for being absolutely ruthless when situations called for it. I sent her an encrypted email with enough detail to show this wasn't a standard divorce, and her assistant called back within 2 hours to schedule me for Monday morning. When I walked into Jacqueline's office, I brought printed copies of everything, organized in labeled folders. The affair evidence, the financial crimes, the timeline, the bank records. I laid it all out on her conference table like I was presenting to a jury. Jacqueline's expression shifted from professional interest to genuine shock. "This is worse than you think," she said, looking up with the kind of serious face that meant bad news was coming. The embezzlement alone could get her prison time. But if those donor funds came from federal grants, we're talking wire fraud, mail fraud, potential RICO implications. I told Jacqueline what I wanted. Not just a divorce, but everything. I wanted Olivia to lose everything she'd built on lies. I wanted the house sold and proceeds put into a trust for Liam and Sophia. I wanted every stolen dollar returned to the foundation. I wanted full custody because I wasn't leaving my kids with someone who'd commit fraud this casually. And I wanted to control the narrative before she could paint herself as the cancer survivor abandoned by her heartless husband. Jacqueline made notes and then asked the question I'd been dreading: what if the cancer comes back? I thought about this for hours, wondering what kind of man abandons his wife during a recurrence. Then I remembered that message about me having no idea who she really is. And I remembered the woman I thought I married didn't actually exist. "Then she'll handle it without me," I said, just like she handled everything else, by lying and using people who actually care. Jacqueline nodded slowly. "We need to move fast. If she realizes you know anything, she'll start moving money and building her defense." Jacqueline moved fast, and so did I. Within 3 weeks, we had a strategy that would dismantle everything Olivia had built, while she thought she was still in control. I consulted with Jacqueline about the house, and she advised me to wait for the divorce filing because trying to sell it unilaterally could backfire legally. Instead, we built an airtight case that would force Olivia to agree to my terms, or face criminal prosecution. Jacqueline filed the divorce papers on a Monday morning, and I had them served to Olivia at the foundation office that afternoon by a professional process server. Official documentation, witnessed by 3 staff members who'd spent months praising her courage and dedication. I wasn't there to see her face, but I heard about it later from David, one of the board members. He said Olivia went pale, locked herself in her office for an hour, then came out acting like nothing had happened. Still performing. Still controlling the narrative. But I was already 10 steps ahead. I'd made a detailed report to David about the financial irregularities I'd noticed, and the foundation's board had quietly hired an independent auditor. That auditor was finding exactly what I'd found: the fake consulting company, the invoices, the transfers, the $47,000 that should have gone to help a family in Ohio struggling with pediatric leukemia costs. Every transaction was documented, time-stamped, and completely indefensible. David called me after the preliminary audit results came back, and I walked him through everything I'd discovered. I provided copies of the evidence I'd gathered, and watched the foundation's leadership realize they'd been promoting a fraud for months. The board scheduled an emergency meeting, and they decided to use the foundation's annual gala as the moment to expose everything. The gala was supposed to be Olivia's triumphant moment, her return as the face of cancer survivorship. The woman who'd beaten the odds and dedicated herself to helping others. 300 guests, major donors, local press, corporate sponsors, everyone who mattered in the nonprofit world. Olivia had been planning it for months, coordinating every detail. She picked out a silver dress, prepared remarks, invited people who'd supported her through treatment. She thought it was going to be her coronation. I made sure it became her trial. I arrived early with a USB drive containing a presentation Jacqueline and I had assembled: timeline, screenshots, financial records, hotel receipts, everything organized to tell the complete story. I found the AV technician setting up the projection system and told him there had been a programming change from the board. I handed him the drive and a $100 bill to ensure it loaded correctly. He didn't ask questions. The ballroom filled over the next hour with donors in expensive suits and dresses, foundation staff who genuinely believed in their work, cancer survivors who'd been helped by legitimate programs. Olivia held court in the center, wearing that silver dress and a smile that could sell anything. Marcus was there too, standing near the back. Olivia had invited him as a consultant to celebrate the foundation's growth, not realizing what was about to happen. I watched them exchange one careful glance across the room, and it made me sick. David stepped to the podium at 8 sharp and started with the usual welcome speech, thanking donors and recognizing supporters. Then he paused, looked directly at Olivia near the front, and said something that made the entire room shift. Before we hear from our guest of honor tonight, the board has asked me to share some critical information that's come to our attention regarding financial accountability. The projection screen lit up with the first slide. A photo of Olivia during chemotherapy, the vulnerable image she'd shared on social media to build sympathy. The next slide showed a text message exchange between her and Marcus, time-stamped from the same week, discussing a hotel meeting and being careful. The room went completely silent. Olivia's face drained of color, and I watched her look around frantically, trying to figure out what was happening and who was responsible. Her eyes landed on me against the sidewall, and the recognition hit her like a physical blow. The presentation continued, methodically building the case slide by slide. Her messages about using cancer as cover. The fake consulting company. The invoices. The bank transfers. The $47,000 stolen from a designated patient assistance fund. Photos of her at spas while I thought she was at doctor's appointments. Hotel check-in records matching dates when she claimed to be too exhausted from treatment to leave the house. Then came the audio, the piece I'd saved for maximum impact. A voicemail she'd sent to Marcus that I'd found in her cloud backup. Her talking about how easy it was to manipulate my schedule. The cancer thing really locks him down. He won't question anything now. Her own voice, her own words, played through the ballroom sound system for 300 people to hear. Marcus stood up abruptly and walked toward the exit. Half the room was staring at the screen while the other half stared at Olivia. The foundation's board members were having urgent whispered conversations near the podium. David stepped back to the microphone and made the announcement Jacqueline had helped craft: the board has accepted Olivia's resignation effective immediately. We've referred all financial irregularities to the appropriate authorities. The foundation will make full restitution to affected programs and implement new oversight procedures. We apologize to everyone who trusted us. Security escorted Olivia out. I watched her walk through that ballroom with every eye on her, the same ballroom where she'd expected applause and vindication. I didn't follow her. I stayed until the end, talked to David and other board members, assured them I'd cooperate fully with any investigation, then went home to my kids. The divorce took 7 months to finalize, which Jacqueline said was actually fast given the complexity. She'd negotiated terms that left Olivia with almost nothing, because the alternative was criminal prosecution. Full custody to me with supervised visitation only. The house was sold, and proceeds went into an irrevocable trust for Liam and Sophia, managed by a third party, with terms Olivia couldn't touch or contest. She had to repay every dollar she'd stolen, which meant liquidating her car, her retirement accounts, everything of value. She had to resign from the foundation permanently and agree never to work in non-profit management again. Zero spousal support due to the infidelity and fraud. Olivia's own attorney advised her to fight it, but Jacqueline had made it crystal clear that fighting meant federal wire fraud charges, and Olivia wasn't stupid enough to risk prison. She signed every page. Marcus's marriage imploded. He lost his job when the story went public, and last I heard, he was working for some startup in another state, trying to rebuild his reputation. The foundation recovered, implemented strict financial controls, and continued helping people who actually needed it. Then, 9 months after the divorce was final, Olivia called from a number I didn't recognize. She was crying, barely coherent, and said the words I'd been half expecting: "It's back. The cancer's back, and it's worse this time." I stood in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd first discovered those messages on her phone. And I felt absolutely nothing. No sympathy, no guilt, no urge to fix this for her. "You'll handle it," I said calmly, "just like you handled everything else." She started saying something about the kids needing their mother, about how she'd made mistakes but didn't deserve this, about how sorry she was. I cut her off. "Cancer didn't change you, Olivia. It just revealed who you always were." I hung up. Liam and Sophia are doing okay now. They're in therapy, processing their mother's choices, and some days are harder than others. But they're safe. They're provided for. And they're learning that actions have consequences, and that trust actually matters. I'm back to my regular caseload, destroying liars for a living. And I'm better at it than ever, because I learned from the best. My wife taught me that the most dangerous lies are the ones wrapped in sympathy. And that lesson is something I'll never forget. I thought supporting someone through their darkest hours made a marriage unbreakable. Turns out, some people see your devotion as weakness, your sacrifice as opportunity, and your love as something to exploit. I gave Olivia everything I had during the worst time of her life. And she repaid me by becoming the biggest fraud case I ever worked. The only difference is, this time, I wasn't just the investigator. I was the victim who made sure justice actually got served. What would you have done if you found yourself in my shoes?